So YoYoFactory just released their brand new Offstring Yoyo, the Airwave, and it is their first major Offstring Yoyo release in 4 years. And I know it's on your mind because it was the same thing that was on my mind when I first heard about it. How does it compare to the Flight? So that's what this video is all about. So the Airwave, when you compare it to the Flight, there are 4 main differences that you're going to notice. First, the shape is different. The Airwave is more of a star shape, which is built more for performance, and so you're going to notice that performance and that it plays a little bit faster. It's going to be a little bit better for horizontal style tricks. And in general, it's just going to be a little bit better for tech as well, with strings kind of coming out of the gap of the yo-yo at different angles, having those sharper angles coming out of the yo-yo. That's going to help just a little bit. But the other changes are actually a little bit more significant, in my opinion. And so the first thing that you're going to notice is probably the biggest change. It is wider than the Flight. The second change, which is a little bit less noticeable, the diameter is just a little bit smaller. And then the third change, it is lighter than the Flight. And so I'm going to talk about each of these things and kind of give you a feel for how each yo-yo plays. And of course, the big question, which one should you get? Since this is the new yo-yo, has it replaced the Flight? Is there still room for the Flight? Should you get them both? So I'm going to give you that summary at the end of this video, but let's just tackle things one at a time. So the first thing is width. Now, the most obvious advantage of a wider yo-yo is that when you're doing really big tricks like open string binds and repeated elements where the yo-yo is coming on and off the string, the width is going to make it a little bit easier to hit those tricks. Now, what I was surprised about is, and actually this is true of most wider yo-yos, I'm surprised how much a little extra width makes a huge difference when you're doing tricks, and that is definitely true of the Airwave. I found my consistency go way, way up on tricks that I struggled with before that are in this category, and so I'm sure you're going to notice the same thing. Now, what I didn't realize is what difference a smaller diameter would make. Now, first I'm going to talk about the Flight. So in general, with yo-yo design, the larger a diameter is, the more rim weight power that yo-yo has. So having a larger diameter is going to give the Flight more rim weight. And you might also notice that the rims are thinner on the Airwave than the Flight. And so that's kind of like 2 points in favor of the Flight as far as it having more power. It's got that bigger diameter and the thicker rims. And the third thing that's going to give it more power is just in general, it is heavier. If you look at all the Offstring yo-yos on the market, the Flight is definitely on the higher side in terms of weight, and the Airwave falls right into the middle. So how does that affect the way each of them plays? Well, the Flight is it's just more powerful in its spins. If you go back and you watch our original review, I remember when I first tried the Flight and I was still kind of struggling to get through certain tricks, I was able to do tricks longer and better and go further with the Flight because it's got so much power. And so when you compare the two of them, you will notice that the Airwave, it's a little bit more nimble, it moves a little bit quicker. It doesn't quite have the same power, but that's not really a downside. The Flight is kind of overpowered. If you compare it to other Offstring yo-yos, it's like a superpower kind of, where the Airwave in that one respect is more in the middle of the pack. It's going to give you pretty much what other Offstring yo-yos give you in terms of power. The Flight is just a little bit overpowered. So again, if you're kind of a newer player and your throw is still kind of weak, or you're just starting to figure out your tricks, you're going to appreciate that advantage of the Flight. But if you're starting to get into more advanced tricks and you don't find that spin time is the limiting factor for you, then the Airwave does have a lot of other advantages for you. Now, the first thing is, with the smaller diameter that it has compared to most Offstring yo-yos, the most unexpected advantage is that when you're doing recaptures, which is a very popular element in Offstring yo-yoing, it actually makes it quite a bit easier. And I think it's because you don't have to move your arm around quite as much to get the string back in and out of the gap of the yo-yo. The other thing is, when doing tech tricks and things that are very small, you might think a wider yo-yo is going to make it harder to do tech. But the way that Offstring tech is built, actually having the smaller diameter more than compensates for that. And so you'll find that your tech tricks are quite a bit easier on this yo-yo. And again, with it being lighter, it's more nimble, it can move faster, you can control it a little bit easier. Now, the same thing is true with your open string binds. What you're going to find with this yo-yo is that open string binds, they grab easier than they do on the Flight, and that's because it has less momentum. It's less powerful, and so it's easier to get the yo-yo to bind and come back up. Now, when it's coming back to you, you need a little bit more finesse, which again, as a more experienced player, you're going to appreciate because the yo-yo is going to respond to you a little bit quicker. The flight is more of a powerhouse. It's just going to power through it. When you're newer at tricks, especially combining various open string elements, you're going to appreciate that power. It's going to kind of help you correct your mistakes, even if you're not doing everything exactly right. But when you get a little more finesse, you might feel like the flight is fighting against you a little bit, so it might be time to get a lighter yo-yo. Now, another thing that you're going to notice that these yo-yos have in common is they both have an area for finger spins and or thumb grinds. And if you look, the size of the bowl is about the same width on each yo-yo, so it's just about as easy to hit. The flight was actually built for thumb grinds, and so I would say it's still superior for those types of tricks. Those are not quite as popular anymore as they used to be, where the Airwave was actually built with finger spins in mind, and so it's a little bit better for those. Now with both yo-yos, if you're going to be attempting these tricks, you will want to catch the yo-yo at an angle that'll help it be a little bit more controlled. You'll be able to get more spin time out of it compared to when it levels out completely, and that's just a little tip to kind of help you master those particular tricks. Now another nice advantage of the Airwave, because it has these thinner rims, is that it bounces quite a bit better than the flight. That was always kind of the one disappointing thing about the flight, especially somebody who's going to use it in a contest or perform in front of people. Even on a very ideal surface like a gym floor, it bounces okay, but not great. And that's because the rims are thicker. That's kind of the compromise you get with having extra power. With the Airwave, the rims are thinner, and that allows it to bounce better. It's better for recovery, it's better for practice, it's better in almost every scenario. Now both yo-yos, if you're using it on a surface like a carpet, they will run away from you, but on a flat surface, whether it's tile or a gym floor or a wood floor, the Airwave is going to bounce really, really well, and that's something you're definitely going to appreciate. Now another thing that the flight really knocked it out of the park, and even surprised us, was how durable this yo-yo is. When we first got it, we spent 6 months punishing this yo-yo, and we would play with it over concrete. We would throw it up as high as we possibly could. We would have contests to see who could throw it higher and just let it slam into the road. It never broke. And a lot of people online have noticed when they get these just how durable they are. You may notice some stress cracks along the inside of the yo-yo. That never seems to affect play. I have never read or heard of or had any of my flight yo-yos have the plastic break on them. It is just super durable. Now we haven't had the Airwave quite as long, and so we tested it under what I think are legitimate conditions for testing a yo-yo. We didn't play with it on concrete and different things because nobody should really be playing with their Offstring yo-yos that way unless you want to get it all scuffed up, and it's just not nice. So what we did is we took it to a gymnasium and we threw it all the way up to the ceiling for a good 10 minutes and just let it slam into the ground and bounce and go all over the place. We even shot a basket with it just to, what the heck. And by the time we were done, it still played exactly the way it did when we went into the gym. Now, it's not exactly the same as testing it over the long run, but in general, I would say there's no reason to feel like this yo-yo won't be durable, but until we get it in the hands of customers, you never really know for sure. Now, another thing that these yo-yos have in common is that they are both molded plastic. And one thing that means is that they are going to be lower cost. Now, I'm not going to give you the cost in this video because they're subject to change, but if you go on our website, you'll notice that most likely the flight is a little bit cheaper than the Airwave, but both of them are much, much less expensive than the vast majority of Offstring yo-yos in the market. And that's because most Offstring yo-yos are machined plastic, and that drives the cost up. But machined plastic yo-yos do have one major advantage, and that's the precision that you can get in the machining is a little bit higher than you can get with molded plastic. And this really only has one noticeable effect, and that is in terms of what yo-yo players like to call vibe, how much vibration you can feel when the yo-yo's on the string or if you touch it with your finger while you're playing with it. It is a lot to ask for molded yo-yos to have absolutely no vibration, and the bigger the yo-yos get, the more difficult it is to get them to be completely vibe-free. And so what YoYoFactory does on a lot of their yo-yos, and this is true on both of these, is they put these little markers on the yo-yo. And as long as those markers are lined up, the yo-yo is going to spin as true, as vibe-free as it is able to do. Now, with a lot of yo-yos that use a nut and bolt system, the longer you play with it, the more those lines will get offset, which can add some vibration over time. Now, something about the shape of the flight makes it so that the vibration doesn't really matter over time, and so I don't think I've heard too many people, if anybody, ever complain about the vibe on the flight. The vibe is more noticeable on the Airwave if those arrows are not lined up, and so what YoYoFactory did, I think, is really smart. This center hub where the yo-yo screws together isn't just made out of regular aluminum, it's made out of 70-75 aluminum, which is quite a bit stronger. And so what you'll notice as you're taking it apart and putting it back together is that these arrows hardly ever stray from that perfectly centered point. And so it's quite a bit easier to keep those arrows lined up even as you're playing in the long run. Again, we've been testing them for several weeks and I haven't seen any drift whatsoever. The yo-yos still play exactly the way they played when I first got them. Again, when customers use them and try them in different circumstances, we'll see if that plays out in the long run, but at least from our experience, that has not been a major issue. So in general, who should be considering each of these yo-yos? Well, because the Flight has a little bit more spin power and it's known to be as durable as possible. Again, the Airwave may prove to be just as durable, but it just hasn't been tested quite as long yet. And because the price of the Flight is a little bit less, if you are a new player and you haven't yo-yoed for very long and you just want to try out Offstring because you think it might be really fun, and it is, I would probably lean toward recommending the Flight for you. That extra spin power it gives you is going to help quite a bit at the beginning. It's going to keep the yo-yo from tilting a lot as you're working on your throw and your bind and things like that. But if you're already kind of an experienced player in one or more styles, or if you've done some Offstring yo-yoing before and you've already got the basics down, I think that you're really, really going to appreciate all the advantages that the Airwave has to offer. Not only can you push things further with your open string binds and multiple catches and things like that, but also with your tech, you're going to find it's just a little bit better. And pretty much with all the different tricks, once you have a little bit more control, a little bit more finesse, you're going to find it's just more fun to play with this yo-yo just because it's a little wider, it's a little bit lighter. I think the experience is going to be a little bit better. Now, there's a number of us who perform on a routine basis with Offstring yo-yos. For a long time, I've been using the Flight exclusively. Ever since I got my first shot to use this yo-yo, the Airwave, I've had it for a couple of weeks and I switched over immediately. Now, these are the yo-yos I practice with. They're the ones I use in shows. I absolutely love them. And the other guys that I know that perform, they also are switching over as well. It's just a really great experience. Again, once you've reached a certain level of proficiency, I think that most players will appreciate the Airwave. It's hard to say, you know, the Flight also has its advantages. I feel like those are more for brand new players who haven't quite got everything down with Offstring yet. Once you get better, the Airwave is kind of the wave of the future, if you will. So yeah, I think both have their place in the market. I think that both are excellent options. I don't think the Flight is going to go anywhere. I think it still is probably the best first option for most players. But again, if you want to take things further, if you just want to go as far as possible, the Airwave is an excellent choice. So yeah, take a look at them, see what you like. You could always get both. That is the Flight and the Airwave.